Welcome back to another Weber State Thursday night broadcast. This will be an NECC game. This is the first round of the playoffs. So we have our Weber State University purple, and we will be facing Illini Esports blue.
Yes, we're happy to have you join us for some super exciting games against what looks to be a very tough opponent in Illini Esports Blue. Worth mentioning, they're fully the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, so want to shout out their full name just to be clear. But otherwise, Illini's looking like a strong opponent from what we saw. Their players pretty high rated.
Yeah, so it should be a pretty intense game. Both teams have like slightly similarly rated, but Illini Esports does have a little bit higher. They have a few more master rank players. So it should be a pretty competitive game. We'll have to see if each team can really play towards the strengths of their players and where their weaknesses are on the maps and if they can draft around it. And I think if they do that, it could really swing either way. Now, as a reminder, this will be a best of 3 game. So the first team to 2 wins will win. And it is also a fearless draft. So that means that in game 2, any champions we saw in game 1 will not be able to be played. As we go into draft here, we see that Illini Esports opts to ban the Corky first. Weber State does respond with a Syndra. Syndra, a very good ban. She has a lot of range, a lot of burst damage. Just good to take off of either team's hands, really.
Yeah, so far it seems like Illini very much against these long range but dash forward AD carries, right? These AD carries that are all about all-inning with, say, a Nami support. I would say that both of these AD carries are very well known for their synergy with Nami.
Yeah, and Weber State definitely known for their very aggressive bot lane, so trying to minimize their ability to play in those comfort picks is very good from Illini to be able to take advantage of and to try and avoid. We see a Renekton ban coming out last, just trying to take some more tools out of Drew Peacock's hands. A good choice there. And then Weber State just responding with a last ban here. It looks like it will be a Galio. So again, just another solid mid laner. It opens up a lot of picks. This Galio is kind of the counter pick for a lot of people into certain matchups.
Yeah, and especially telegraphs a bit of a dive comp, which I think Illini was already somewhat telegraphing with the Renekton ban. How often do you see a Renekton ban when it's not telegraphing an Mbessa, right? And we will see it locked in. I feel like that's just nowadays very common, right? Renekton has a phenomenal matchup into the Mbessa with the built-in shield shear he has. Yeah, that's the right term. So it's really strong for him.
Yeah, Mbessa, just a solid character these patches too. Even despite some of the jungle nerfs, she still has a really solid clear time. She's very good in the top lane into many matchups. She can play safe thanks to her dashes and just relying on energy. We see Weber State responding here with a Vi pick, allowing or I guess denying Illini from being able to take both Mbessa and Vi. That's like a super dive comp, so I think it's a good choice. Gloomgrove also just has a fantastic Vi.
Yeah, we've seen Gloomgrove do some crazy things in the Vi, including some cheeky invades. I feel like Gloomgrove, known especially on the purple team here for invading very aggressively. Sometimes it doesn't work out, but a lot of the time it leads to a huge snowball of an advantage, right? He's the captain of the team for a reason. He tends to be the major playmaker that can get Weber ahead. So we'll see if they can continue up with that performance on the Vi. Overall, it seems like dive really is the name of the game for Illini. Again, obviously we're only one pick in, but it seems their team likes to play it. You can see like the Galio ban, the Xin Zhao ban early in the series. These are all champions that really like going in, and now Ari locked in as well. It makes sense.
Yeah, and these dive comps honestly really fantastic for tempo. This Jarvan hover, it looks like it will just support that, with the lock-in. So really, dive comps having fantastic ability to keep up tempo and to be able to stay ahead of the opponents. So I think a great pick, especially in these collegiate games where it's less about matchups and it's more about that pace, and then as well as champion comfort picks. Like we didn't talk too much about the Lux is a fantastic comfort pick from Itsufushi, and he plays it pretty well into dive comps. He's good at staying away and just really using that final spark to help capitalize on the Vi engage and whatnot. We see a Poppy pick here from Weber State, which is a great pick for them considering, well, a lot of members on this Illini team have dashes. So Poppy is just a great aggressive pick. It's also fantastic into Jarvan, as Poppy can stun into the Jarvan Cataclysm wall. A couple more bans here coming out. We see a Braum ban from Illini. This is a great choice. Braum has been very strong for a couple patches. He's not as strong due to some recent nerfs, but he is pretty good. A Bard ban coming back from Weber State. So just trying to avoid the pressure Bard can pick, because Bard plays basically into every comp. He can protect against dive. He can also help with dive due to setting up with his ult and his magical journey that he has. So lots of great picks. Nico, again, following suit. She's great for dive or protection against dive. Just taking away these multi-tool type of champions is good.
Yeah, I think interesting to me that Illini isn't necessarily respecting the Poppy flex. I guess they're just saying it is Poppy top, right? Because again, this could be theoretically Poppy top or support. It seems that Illini very much all in on the belief that this is a Poppy top and that they are going to pinch out the supports, or maybe saying, hey, if we ban out really good supports, we can at least force it into the support lane. Say that, hey, now you have to go there because what else do you have, really? We'll see what Weber does have up their sleeves. They've got to pick either, at least their bottom laner guaranteed, but then either support or top laner to reveal the flex. Thankfully, that flex pick could be last, so we'll see if they reveal it now or not. Okay, they're going to choose to hold on to potential Poppy play as Kai'Sa locked in. Obviously, this could be like a Vi top lane, but we're not playing with the Baus. So I think this is likely a Poppy top or support.
Yeah, I do like this Kai'Sa pick. Kai'Sa is good into like playing with the dive comp, so it kind of denies a pick from Illini. But then also she has some survivability with having her ultimate as well as the stealth against some dive comps. But it kind of depends how she plays out, because if she gets behind in the early game, she's also just going to be kind of useless, and then those things don't matter. As we see Illini taking a safe pick here, they pick an Ezreal. So Ezreal has a lot of poke that can set up around these objectives. They obviously have a lot of dive, but he can E forwards. He can do a lot of things here to try and really just protect, or I mean, kind of play with the team and have some flexibility. And then Karma locked in just is a really strong bot lane here, so the Ezreal and the Karma poke will be very annoying for a Kai'Sa to deal with.
Yeah, maybe the most iconic bot lane duo in the modern age, especially with how strong Ezreal has been with the addition of some of the new items. I think Endless Hunger has been the best on Ezreal by a long shot. The amount of ability haste he gets for his Q is unreasonable, and suddenly his E becomes like a 3-second cooldown as well, which means late game, he now scales way better than he ever has. Looks like we were choosing to play defensively on their last pick here. The Thresh locked in, guaranteeing the Poppy is going top. I like the Thresh a lot. I think it keeps Weber alive through lane phase, because if you know anything about Ezreal, Karma, and potentially Jarvan Ahri, right, that's an all-in bot side. They want to punish Weber heavily on the bottom side of the map.
Yeah, it's going to be very tricky for the Thresh to land hooks, because most of the enemy team has great mobility, but he has a lot of fantastic disengage tools. So we're going to really be looking for flay options, as well as where he can use the box and then also lantern his teammates out. So I think it is a good pick here. It definitely will be a little bit of a hand stiff to see if he can successfully keep off some of these enemy champions. But it should be a pretty intense game here. It will be Weber State fending off a lot of dive while also trying to set up a few picks of their own.
Yeah, Weber does have great disengage, right? I mean, Poppy Thresh, very, very good at disengage. But they have some good non-committal gauge and well and Thresh hooks and Lux light bindings, right? I think Weber should be trying to fish for those as much as they can, because randomly getting caught out on accident by going in too far with a Vi, I mean, the only person that can follow you on Vi guaranteed is Kai'Sa. And that could get your Kai'Sa killed. So Weber's execution seems to be, I think, a bit more difficult, honestly. We'll see how it plays out, though, as I believe, folks, we are ready to jump into our game.
Yeah, entering the Rift, here we are. We see that Weber State is on the red side, with Illini Esports here on the blue side. So things to look out for here will be the pathing of the junglers, where they want to play to, where each team thinks their strengths and weaknesses are, and then what is, I guess, essentially what their strategies are going to be for the team.
Ooh, Jarvan looks like they had a little bit of a mishap here. Obviously, Jarvan, it doesn't matter as much nowadays if you don't get your jungle item out of base, right? You're not going to get punished for that, really, or be that far behind. But still, having to walk all the way back out onto the map because he forgot his jungle pet is at least a tempo killer, right? He might be a little bit slower at getting vision, couldn't get a good ward down aggressively, and now you can see Gloomgrove prepping for potentially what would have been a play, but doesn't have to defend against anything.
Yeah, it looks like luckily the Jarvan is able to get back on his camps, but there are no aggressive wards here placed for Illini Esports, so they're not going to know where the Vi is clearing to and from. But also Weber State Esports maybe not necessarily aware of that, so maybe they don't have the potential to play around that information. They just know that they didn't see anybody walk up toward the chickens, which is usually the common practice. But we see this Jarvan actually with no info going to invade the blue buff here. I don't know if the Jarvan level 1 is really that strong into the Vi, but I guess he got some amount of info, or he's just taking a risky gambit and just sending it.
I think he's just choosing to take the risky gambit. I would imagine, even with Conqueror, Jarvan does not win that. The cooldown on his E is so insanely long, you're really only ever going to get one flag and drag off, whereas Vi, with the constant resetting of her E, is pretty powerful. We can see that at least in the mid lane, Itsufushi has a lot more pressure, so if the Jarvan is caught while doing this, he will be swiftly executed by anyone other than the bot side of Weaver. I think that might be why Jarvan's feeling quite confident in it. Even if something were to happen, maybe they'd get caught out or whatever, you can have a Karma with Flash and Heal still both up, walk up easily, and help defensively. Unfortunately, though, it looked like Jarvan in a great position. No reaction from Eros, deciding to save both summoners once the flag and drag hit. A clean first blood from the jungler of Illini.
Yeah, I feel like I still... Oh, and then Drew Peacock also solo boloed here up in this top lane by the Mbessa. Mbessa, I mean, before Poppy really has access to her W, Mbessa definitely can play that lane pretty well. Showing, and she also has the ability to kind of space around the Poppy W. The Poppy W also a really long cooldown, so it's a tough play here for Drew Peacock. But now we have to see, Gloomgrove does respond quite well. He rather quickly finds out that his bot side was taken, so now he just goes to take the entire top side here of the opposing junglers. So he won't be far behind here at all. In fact, if any. But we can see the Karma is actually roaming up, so she might be here to help to help get Gloomgrove out of this jungle. The Mbessa is also here to try and play around the lane. There's a 4-man collapse here on Gloomgrove. He does appear to be aware. However, he fails his Vault Breaker over the wall, so now he's forced to flash, but the Mbessa is just chasing down. That's 2 kills for an Mbessa here in just 3 minutes of the game. That is tragic here for Weber State Esports.
Drew Peacock trying to get what they can back in terms of damage to at least make the lane phase playable, but reminder, folks, that Karma did roam all the way up and could still get some value out of their time here. Pretty disastrous play from Weaver. I understand the idea from Gloomgrove, but the moment you miss the Q over the wall, unfortunately, you're just not going to end up anywhere beneficial. This Mbessa already 2-0, and actually in the mid lane, it looks like a gank from Jarvan as well will secure another kill in the favor of Illini, a 4-0 lead. They're 2,000 gold up already in the first 3.5 minutes.
Yeah, Jarvan very potent into a Lux. Lux without the mobility. Itsufushi also did burn the flash. So as soon as that Jarvan's able to hit a flag and drag, or even the reverse, if the Ahri hits the charm, then the other one guarantees their CC, and it's just a rough lane and a rough gank to try and get out of as far as Lux is concerned. We can see here too, Drew Peacock just kind of being bullied here. Oh, as he misses the pullback on the Mbessa, and it looks like that'll be all she wrote. The Mbessa, oh, they agreed for the plate. They would have actually gotten out due to their triumph, I think. However, they do end up going down, so that is a great turnaround of gold for the Poppy. You can see the Mbessa is still 600 up, but definitely not as tragic as it could have been for her.
Yeah, I mean, whatever you call out there, whether it be Triumph or maybe just grass peeling coming out late, either way, I think you were 100% correct saying that Mbessa didn't expect to survive that, and as a result, ends up giving up a kill for basically nothing other than a plate, I suppose. Zilla being poked out here, but Arrow's getting a decent amount of damage back as well, so it's not the worst until Ilio lands that insane last trade there, flashing forward as well, saying that they want to get something more than just some gold. Ooh, great flash hook, unfortunately met by a minion, so it won't end up going anywhere.
Yeah, it's one of those situations that, as a support, I wish I would just take Smite, so you could take the minion out of the way. Unfortunately, though, that's not going to happen as far as we're concerned.
I mean, for what it's worth, you know, Spellbook support's another reason to take it. If you're a hook champion like Nautilus or especially Blitzcrank and Thresh, look, man, worst comes to worst, even if you're miles behind, you get exhaust for free eventually, and you can smite a minion when you go to hook. So that's my PSA on why you should take Unsealed Spellbook on supports. Do it, please. It'd be really fun. As looks like a mid-hit gank here coming out. Reminder that, unfortunately, Lux has no flash. Itsufushi used it earlier and will be going down because the Ahri ultimate already obtained at level 6 means that it's a quick and easy kill, and the map is really falling apart for Weaver.
Yeah, the Jarvan deciding to dedicate the flash there to guarantee the knockup does allow for that extra kill. We do see Gloomgrove has been able to catch up here a little bit on the farm despite some difficulties with the invades and things early. But he is not quite level 6 here for the dragon take. The Jarvan fortunately won't be either, but he's just going to try and send this dragon. It's definitely a risky look here, but I guess they had a sense that there were no wards. I don't believe they even had a thorough sweeping on it. But this could be a good thing for Weber State just to be able to sneak this away from the enemy team. They're already behind, and they need to start prepping for scaling into the late game. I like this play.
Yeah, I think there's a good macro call from Weber, right? They know Jarvan just used the flash, so if he chooses to flag and drag into the pit, he's not getting out. Ari used ultimate in the mid lane, and Itsufuji's out of base first, so just a great call. Unfortunately, walking into the charm a little bit there from Itsufuji means that they will lose the aggressive pressure that they seem to have in lane. They'll need to play back a bunch, especially with a Jarvan Cataclysm potentially sneaking up above them here. Oh, Itsufuji, can you escape? No, a beautiful charm landed, and the Cataclysm comes down. A good route, but it doesn't last long enough to kill a Jarvan.
Yeah, just once again, it's that immobile Lux into a dive comp. It's in these laning phases, it's really rough. However, like we've said before, we've seen Itsufuji last into these late games where they're able to play really safe, and that's kind of where they come in clutch on the Lux. We see a great hook engage here with the Thresh. However, the Ezreal just has a massive level advantage. Having spent so much time in the solo lane, he's 2 levels up on the Thresh, an entire level up on the Kai'Sa. Just secures that he's able to really put the ending to that Thresh's life.
I was trying to find something back, getting a little bit of damage in Ezreal. I think was looking for something, absolutely. Maybe the WR buffer. I know that's very popular as the barrier comes out and the ultimate coming forward. The double shield flashing forward to just get out of vision. Will successfully survive for a bit, but it's unfortunately Ezreal picking up another kill, and it's a trade that's fine, but not what Weber was looking for.
Yeah, it just looks like this Kai'Sa is going to lose more minions to the tower, which is really unfortunate. As we just mentioned, she's already behind quite a bit on XP by about half a level, so it's just going to hurt even worse. If we look at the total gold differences here on the map, Illini Esports is up by almost 4,000 gold total, with the majority of that being in the top lane, the jungle, and the mid lane here, with 1,000 gold total in the bottom lane. So overall, they're ahead in every lane, which really makes it difficult for Weber State, because usually if you're behind in gold, as we see an engage here coming in from the Poppy, she does a great play. Oh, but then she charges the ult too long and knocks the Mbessa away. That could have been a fantastic play with the Vi coming in, also having their ultimate available, but unfortunately not able to make that happen.
Well, turns out actually Hannah walks right back up, has the public execution, and manages to get a kill there, even with the flash from Drew Peacock. Unfortunately, that was very mismanaged from Weaver. Not what we're looking to see. A little painful as fans of Weaver. And meanwhile, here on the bot side, a fight coming out as well. Leo picks up a nice clean kill with the support of his jungle and support. And it's not looking great for Weaver. Yes, they have one Drake, so scaling is always an optimistic dream. But I don't think a Drake is enough to outset this insane gold difference. That being said, a pick on a Jarvan would be pretty big. He's got a small shutdown going on. Gloomgrove not willing to commit the ultimate, knowing that they will end up dying if they do. So I like the patience there. That's the type of patience I'd like to see from Weaver for the rest of this game. They just need to slow down a little bit, calm down, and get the game back under control.
Yeah, and as we mentioned in the draft, Illini just has so many options as far as tempo goes, because they have so much mobility, they have so much dive. They can really just kind of dictate, like when they show up to a lane, they have the crowd control to be able to pull a fight off and to be able to make sure that they have what they need to. We see this Mbessa has the Eclipse unlocked, and so we can see that damage and the shield coming back. Poppy's already a relatively low damage champion, and so having that extra shielding is going to make these fights so tough for her. Jarvan deciding to start up the grubs, as we see Gloomgrove just on the opposite side of the map trying to keep a little bit of a farm advantage, as she is getting the Scuttle Crab.
I mean, the Scuttle Crab will go in fact go down. I mean, for what it's worth, the grubs on the top side of the map going down to the Jarvan, so only one actually looks like. They decided to back away at the last second, saying that, hey, I can deny more camps. We're pretty sure we know where Gloomgrove is. Gloomgrove, in fact, going for a very cheeky walk-in, but some really clever ward placement means the moment those are swept out, they should know that the Vi is there. No ping's coming out immediately, but again, it's really evident at that point.
Yeah, we'll have to see if the enemy team's paying enough attention. If they weren't, then they won't know. I don't believe it reveals the Vi in the bush, but they can obviously see that the sweeper was not being active on the Thresh or the Kai'Sa. So it should be pretty obvious, but you never know. Gloomgrove just trying to stick it. I think Weber State may be a little bit desperate to see if they can get anything going. We see Jarvan back on the grubs. This is really, it's kind of sad to see, because Weber State's just losing resources on the map as the Karma Q does hit the Vi. Gloomgrove has been ousted, so Weber State just wasting a lot of time here for nothing.
Yeah, and even if you do get an ultimate off, I mean, who are you ulting, right? The Ezreal with Flash Barrier? Well, no, it's going to be the Karma then. Well, the Karma has ultimate ready, so she can empowered tether to heal an unbelievable amount. She could shield herself and Ezreal. She has heal still ready. even though the play could have happened, I don't know if it would have amounted to much. So, as you said, yeah, just a heartbreaking amount of time lost for Weber. Drew Peacock trying to get somewhat of a trade back topside, but I don't think they win trades. Maybe for the rest of the game, we might be at that point already, unfortunately.
Now, we do see Weber State is looking to maybe start this Cloud Dragon on spawn. Actually, the Vi looking to recall. However, Illini is walking up. The Karma is pretty far forward here. Itsufushi is going to be caught out here in the mid lane. There is a Jarvan and an Ahri walking at her. The Ahri ult is active. Gloomgrove is able to interrupt. Part of it, though, but the Ahri flash fails and is hit by the final spark. The charm is coming through. Gloomgrove desperately trying to catch up, but opts to Vault Breaker away. So Itsufushi going down, and Illini Esports just really taking control of the map here. A fantastic Lantern to be able to get Gloomgrove out. However, the Jarvan's still looking for a little bit of a chase. Now we see this unfortunate series of events where the Jarvan opted to take the topside jungle of Gloomgrove and then get the grubs. So really the CS advantage that Gloomgrove had a few minutes ago is just completely neutralized, as just Jarvan is going to take even more camps from his bottom side.
And choosing to go on to Eros here, a really smart call from them. I think they can very easily kill. Eros doesn't have flash or ultimate up yet, so they can just simply tank the tower, know that they'll kill the Kai'Sa fast enough, and I believe they'll be finishing off the first tower of the game here as well. A disastrous sequence of plays from Weaver. I like the idea, but what we didn't end up seeing in that fight, because we were watching the Lux plays in the mid lane, was that essentially they killed the Karma, and then Ilio basically 1v3s them, like walked out of that fight with nearly full health and forced arrows all the way back. Zilla had to play defensively, and Gloomgrove lost all of the pressure that they needed. So huge credit to the AD carry for Illini. It's doing a lot of work.
And once again, we see that basically every lane besides the support is up over 1,000 gold on their opposing laner here for Illini. So it makes it really difficult for Weber State to be able to decide who they can play through, because usually you want somebody ahead so you can at least play through somebody, but they don't have anybody. So they're going to try and take a man advantage fight here on the top lane into this Mbessa. The Mbessa did have quite a big shield here from the empowered teleport, but we see a Jarvan here walking up as Drew Peacock goes quite low. There's support here from a Thresh. Drew Peacock survives for a surprising amount of time, as we do see the box coming up here from Thresh. Gloomgrove desperately trying to kill the Mbessa. She has a lot of shielding. However, this leaves enough time for the Karma to arrive. Now, Gloomgrove opting to go straight onto the Karma, though, is a fantastic call, but the empowered Tether does have a lot of shielding as the Ezreal also arrives. So much time in this fight just allowed for Illini to really regroup. They did a great job in stalling, and they're able to pull out positive again on that fight.
Eros, unfortunately, will be going down here as well. You can see that Ahri being very patient with her spells. I don't think threw out a charm at all in that fight, knowing they really didn't need to. Oh man, these fights are getting really heartbreaking as a Weber fan to watch. I like the ideas, but they just don't have the damage fast enough to kill anybody, right? They're trying to kill an Mbessa with Grasp of the Undying and Eclipse on a Poppy that has at most a Sheen. I guess they've got 8 AD from a Doran's play. You know, that's something, maybe. We really are relying, it seems, on Gloomgrove to do all of the damage right now, right? The other damage dealers aren't grouping up in the top jungle and support trio. And even if they were, I mean, it seems like Weber's too far behind for it to matter.
Yeah, I'd like to see Weber State try and see if they can cross map. Like, there's almost a point where you let the enemy team pick what they're going to fight for, and then you just decide to be on the opposite side of the map where they are at. But I do like the gumption of them to try and make these plays. A good flash from Gloomgrove to be able to get out of that Cataclysm. The Karma gives a lot of movement speed for this Jarvan so that he can really secure his crowd control in good events. We do see a Poppy here is able to secure a few plates on the top side. However, this Mbessa running at her may not have that last long. Mbessa opting to not try and dive onto the Poppy, though. Just a patient play here from Illini as they just continue to pull little bits of a lead. As a good hook from Zilla actually catches the Ezreal and it goes through his dash. However, we don't know if Eros does enough damage. They do actually. The Karma must have used the shield to try and get into lane, and so it was on cooldown. So that's a great shutdown going over for this Kai'Sa, as the Ahri is able to kill Itsufushi. However, the gold that Ahri got from Itsufushi, very minimal compared to the amount of gold that Kai'Sa was able to make up here in this mid lane.
I like the way you think. Some rose-tinted glasses saying, hey, well, you know what? The shutdown for Eros was honestly really good. And the only thing Weber had to use for it was a heal from Zilla. I believe in an ultimate, I guess, the box, right? But as you're going down after using a barrier, especially after the amount of confidence they got from hitting the True Shot Barrage in the mid lane, I really thought Weber was going to just bleed out there, but they will pick up at least a shutdown and start to give us hope here on the caster desk. I'm looking forward to see how the rest of these plays go, because when Weaver does have the ability to go in on a champion without flash, it's quite powerful. We can see Ilio going to be locked down immediately, going to dive in with the Kai'Sa ultimate as well, but if they don't land the hook, it really doesn't matter. Ezreal can just shift away and isn't under any threat. Jarvan threatening to be around instead, but has to reset the Herald to do so. So not a terrible timer from Weaver, honestly. They got a decent amount there.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of resources, though, that Weaver used with not a lot of resources needing to be used from Illini. The Ezreal didn't have to use the flash. Karma didn't use the flash. It just kind of stalled a Herald being taken, but nothing really gained. So it's kind of unfortunate to see that many ultimates going down, as we see the burst damage here from this Ahri onto Gloomgrove is quite high with even just a Malignance and a Hextech Alternator. She does a lot of damage here. It's just kind of a rough game here for Weaver State. We see Hannah coming in to fight Drew Peacock. Drew Peacock able to get a little bit of damage, but it's just going to be neutralized. One thing that I'm thinking about here is what Weaver State can really answer with. And the scary thing is we see this Karma has the Moonstone done, so her shielding is going to be absolutely insane. As we see a Herald crash here in the mid lane, not quite able to finish the tower off, but I think it should be pretty short-lived, as Illini does have quite the advantage here on this mid lane. They can finish it off here with this next push. But there's a lot of shielding here for Illini. There's an Mbessa, there's a Jarvan, there's the Karma shielding, there's the Eclipse. So I would like to think that there may be some use case for Serpent's Fang, as Eros almost goes down from a Karma poke. But also it's just who could use it the best? Really, they don't have a character that can play as Serpent's Fang very well.
Yeah, I mean, my major cope take is that, Poppy actually does like some damage, and if you're going more of a tanky build like they currently are, you can fit a Serpent's Fang in, you have some AoE, but realistically it's just not happening. As, potentially Gloomgrove getting caught out here with the Public Execution coming out there. You can see the damage is very quick. However, Gloomgrove surviving for just long enough with the healing from the Sundered Sky. They don't have flash, so they should be going down here in just a second, but no, they hold out for long enough. Maybe the Ahri escapes on the bottom side of the fight. No, gets a shutdown over to Arrows. Weaver's starting to look like they're fighting this really, really cleanly. Itsufushi still in a decent area after a good flash, and the grounding from the Poppy and the Thresh standing on top of each other. Weaver in these huge clustered fights. Their composition does a ton of work, but unfortunately so does the extremely fed Ezreal. 6-1-2, now 7, now 8. A quadra kill. And that, folks, is how you carry a game on Ezreal. Wow, what a performance.
Yeah, Arrow's taking a lot of really big shutdowns here. However, it just doesn't matter because the Ezreal was able to scoop up so much gold here. The gold difference before and after that fight basically staying the same. You would think that the catch-up gold might be able to help Weaver State pull back some advantages, but not really. However, the bonus for Weaver, and again, we're coping here a little bit, is that most of it did go onto Eros, so that's fantastic. That's the carry that you want for the late game. We've seen Eros carry these games, so he has the ability to do it. However, he's facing an 8-1 Ezreal. That's going to be a rough uphill battle to be able to go against here in these team fights.
Especially using the flash in that last fight to survive. In fact, Weaver used a lot of flashes there. Both Itsufushi, Drew Peacock, and I think Eros as well. So all three used a major summoner. A couple summoners used on the enemy team as well, but the Mbessa still having full summoners, flash, Public Execution coming up in just a moment here. It might already, no, 10 seconds looks like it will be. So if Weaver isn't careful and play around that cooldown, I think the engaged composition will come alive once more.
Yeah, very true. And we can see some of these item differences coming through as Drew Peacock trying to fight this Jarvan, actually able to get some damage down, but obviously not going to pull anything out with the Mbessa there as well. Gloomgrove trying to jump onto the Karma here. However, it looks like they will be stunned. There is quite a lot of support here from Illini as the Ahri does come in. We've got a Jarvan jumping over a wall. Gloomgrove does get a good flash vault breakers. He's able to get onto this Ahri. That is another kill onto the Ahri from Drew Peacock, or from Gloomgrove. The final spark does take this Jarvan quite low. This is pretty decent play here from Weaver, but an Mbessa is showing up. She has something to say about it. She is able to hit onto Itsufushi, but Itsufushi able to get out thanks to the Thresh support. I gotta say, this Thresh is pulling a lot of weight in his team fights. He's providing a lot of heal and a lot of protection for his teammates here.
Yeah, Zilla still has the very important item cooldown here, Locker the Iron Solari, to potentially keep his teammate alive. Use heal in that last fight, but now has flashback up, so at this point I agree. I think Zilla might need to be the hero for Weaver to find something. Unfortunately right now, Weaver is losing the third Drake of the game. It's only the second Drake for Illini, but it's still pretty scary, right? I mean, when you're trying to go up against what seems to be an Ocean Soul incoming, against a composition that wants to spend a little bit of time poking out first with both Lux and Kai'Sa. Oh, Eros getting their base cancel as well by a great True Shot barrage from Ilya. This game's looking spooky, but I'm honestly astonished that Weber has managed to keep the gold lead at this exact number the whole time. I know that not all of Illini's champions scale incredibly well, right? Like Karma has a harder time out of lane, even with the scaling she gets from Moonstone, and Jarvan, famously not the best scaling champion. Still, with this lead, you would think it wouldn't matter that they don't scale too well. And all things considered, Weber putting up a fight.
Yeah, we'll have to see if they can continue to like deny some objectives and maybe even be able to get back onto the dragon stacking. One thing that we know for sure is with the amount of shielding, as Gloomgrove is caught here between a rock and a hard place sitting on a ward, is able to Vault Breaker away from the Karma. However, the Cataclysm is going to come out to hold him in place. The Threshold trying to predict the Arcane Shift here from the Ezreal, but Gloomgrove is able to survive. It looks like he will lose a chicken camp here for his efforts. As Illini Esports opting to actually start this Baron as they know Gloomgrove is low and probably looking for a reset. I don't know if Weber State's really getting a good read on this. We see a TP coming in. That might be the biggest cue that something is happening. However, Weber State's just not able to get in close to really take a look at it. The Poppy ult is being channeled. It misses just off of the Ezreal. Gloomgrove does jump into the pit, but he was kind of blind. So the Baron did have a lot of HP left here still, but Weber State might be able to get a good amount of poke as arrows just jump in, but he gets hit by the charm. Jarvan secures the Baron here, but a lot of damage coming in from this final spark. However, it looks like Illini still has quite a bit of damage here from the Ambessa, the Ezreal, and the Jarvan as they're going to be able to secure some extra kills here. Drew Peacock going down, Zilla just hiding on this backside looking to maybe get a cheeky recall out. However, that will be just a delayed death from him here in the end.
Oh, what a crazy fight. Huge shout outs to Illini Esports there. For the target selection, I was very impressed at their ability to immediately focus on the person that needed to die most in every moment. Heartbreaking to see Weaver go for a play that doesn't end up working out. I like the idea from Weaver. If the Poppy ult lands, I think they immediately win that fight. They just barely can't find the range on it, so once more, Weber find themselves on the back foot in a very disastrous long play. Let's see how much Weber can lose from the Baron here.
Yeah, we see the gold lead swinging now. It's broken from that 6,000 gold lead, now up to an 8,000 gold. And with the Baron power play, they may be able to get even higher than that. Now we see kind of important gold breakpoints is when you get to about 3,000 gold ahead of someone, as Gloomgrove is actually caught here between a rock and a hard place. Itsufushi also has a Jarvan chasing him down. So there may just be some extra kills here for Illini. This will be able to open up these sides of the map to be able to take this tier 2 tower on the bottom side. But as we were saying, when you're 3,000 gold ahead, that's definitely a full item advantage. As the Karma is actually caught out here, Weber State setting up a little bit of a death rush. Zilla opting to use the box. Eros trying to stay away from the enemy team. The Ambessa ult does miss, however, she is able to jump onto Eros. Eros just so squishy in comparison. Drew Peacock able to ult the Ambessa away, however, so it looks like it is just an Ezreal versus a Poppy and a Thresh, actually doing quite a bit of damage here. Unfortunately, the Arcane Shift does work, but Poppy is securing the 1,000 gold shutdown from the Ezreal. Maybe not the ideal target here for Weber State. Zilla opting to flash to try and get away from the Ambessa, but Ambessa following up with her own flash, able to secure that kill. Overall, not a horrible series of events. It takes Baron off of a lot of the members of Illini, and it brings that gold difference within a lot more of a comfortable range for Weber State.
I don't know how to describe what just happened other than just summarize one play. The Poppy E into the wall where exactly Zilla's hook was already going was beautiful. We were actually having some clean plays there for maybe the first time in the game. I don't want to say that fully. They've had some good moments, but the fact that that fight functionally went 4 for 4 at that much of a gold lead with the Baron up, I mean, how do you walk away from that being upset? Weber has to be pretty cool with that.
Yeah, it was a great kind of rally from them despite kind of desperate circumstances to start. They lost their mid laner. Their jungler was put out by quite a bit. Now, I'd like to see there is a dragon spawning here in 40 seconds. If Illini takes this is soul point, which means they'll have a lot of pressure here in the future. But Weber State, you can see the question mark things from Illini. They are wondering why they're showing so much presence in the top lane. It's Weber trying to get gold back for their side. But Illini, so you can see that Weber State claims an objective bounty. Illini just going to continue to try and push here in this bottom lane. They're trying to take a tier 2 to be able to get gold and then potentially go back to set up for this soul point. But I do kind of like this play from Weber. They're trying to pull back a lot of money and they're putting it on Arrow. So you can see the 80 carry gold lead. Only 300 on the Ezreal despite him having 11 kills and 6 assists.
Weaver just stopped the Mbessa's base as well, so an insane push, honestly, from them. I'm really impressed. They understood that the Drake hadn't even spawned yet, wasn't up for a while. They had plenty of time with Itsufushi's ability to clear the wave, and Weaver gets so much gold off of that. Look at the gold difference now globally. Went from 7.8 thousand or so to 5,000. Weaver pulling back an insane difference, and now Ilio walking right into Gloomgrove's waiting hands, which means the threshold can come out immediately, and they got too confident. Oh, Illini, you thought you had the game in your hands, and now all of a sudden, without a soul, it was only the third Drake. Weaver was fine to give it, and you can see why.
Yeah, this is a fantastic play. Is now that this tower has gone down, that's another objective bounty, so that's a 3,000 gold advantage now for Ilya. Now, obviously, we need to point out that they do have a lot of other advantages. They have a lot of the neutral objectives. Itsufushi just barely dodging the charm. However, the Ari has been dedicated. Ari without the charm does have a lot of damage. Opting to flash, Itsufushi almost gets the final spark off. I don't think it would have been enough to kill, but Itsufushi going down, overstaying just a little bit. But Ilian does have a lot of these neutral objectives, so that's a lot of bonus stats that they have. It's also a lot of pressure on Weber State to make sure that they don't get this soul. If you can imagine this team we've just kind of lamented about with how many shields they have, now if they can stack those shields and then also heal from the Ocean Soul on top of it, they will be virtually unkillable. So this is a sort of desperate play. They cannot let them take this soul, or it almost certainly will be a win for them.
I'm gonna be honest, that sounds horrible. I don't want to imagine that. Worth mentioning, though, that Mbessa also understanding the shielding that Weaver has is pretty good. Zilla being caught out here. If you have to let someone die, your threat support is perfectly fine to, but Eros can absolutely not die. If Eros dies, most of Weaver, if not all of Weaver's damage will go down. You can see Eros escaping now. Still has the ultimate up, the Killer Instinct potentially ready to go out, but Hana now here as well. If they land, the public execution onto the crucial member of Weaver, the game could be over. Bloomberg holding on to the ultimate, it looks like, didn't end up using the cease and desist, so I'm very surprised about that.
Yeah, as maybe Baus would say, the cease and desist also a self-stun despite the fantastic engage. So kind of recognizing that they do have enough burst damage on the enemy team that going in with the cease and desist would certainly be a death sentence, not referencing Thresh's ability, but their own death sentence. So a good play from them. They're just maintaining this sort of gold advantage now. It's instead of 6,000, it's 3,500. We see a lot of key items coming in, and importantly in that fight, they took the Guardian Angel off of the Jarvan for both the Soul fight and the Baron fight. So that's a huge cooldown to have taken off. Usually when you buy that third, you don't want to use it in such kind of a meaningless way. You want to save it for these big key moments that can be game ending. So it's really unfortunate to see that cooldown go down. So we see trying to rally for this Mbessa. They may be able to stop the... Oh, Drew Peacock didn't attack move into the bush, so he misses the recall. That could have been a huge play for Weaver that could have converted into this Baron. However, the Mbessa is able to back by their endless hunger and show up to the next fight for it. That is a huge item for them to be able to have, and really unfortunate here for Weber State.
What could have been the best case scenario turns very quickly into the worst. At least Eros has a gold lead, and that's, I think, the first time a Weber member has had a gold lead. Obviously, they've had it for a couple minutes at this point, but still, it's a really big deal. It means that someone on Weber has the chance to potentially turn the game around. However, Illini wants to close it out safely. We're going to get a teleport in from two different members of Weber. It looks like at the same time. Reminder that Eros has the upgraded W, the Evolve, now meaning that the poke is functionally endless as long as a couple seconds pass here. So let's see, can Weber find what they're looking for? Waiting in the bush, but for the first time, Illini will not be caught lacking on the bush. A great double root from the light binding in the backline means that even though Mbessa goes in, Weaver has plenty of time to respond to this. The Vi ultimate used, if they can burst down the Mbessa fast enough, maybe Weaver can turn it around. Several flashes used away from Illini in a beautiful succession to make sure that the Lux ultimate does not end up killing them, but Eros finds the Killer Instinct onto the backline. Yes, Jarvan can do what he can, but a Poppy Steadfast Presence just clipping the Ahri means that Weaver find a beautiful fight, a 3-for-1, and it's their support.
That was such a clutch death brush. Not a lot of teams really have the willingness to do that. They're in a high intensity moment. Lots of things are moving around. The vision's changing. Weaver says, let us stack 4 people in the bush. We have a TP coming in from the Mbessa. Remember, the Mbessa is very strong. Several key members of Weaver State really low here. The Mbessa gets a kill, so the Endless Hunger is activated. They have so much healing that they have access to. Drew Peacock, the only member left alive. They certainly do not have enough damage to be able to deal with this, especially with the Karma and the Moonstone there. That is such a good play from Hannah to be able to make that call and to jump in. The Endless Hunger putting in so much work here as Drew Peacock just has a long, slow death.
I don't know if my heart has ever felt more pain after so much joy. That hurt. I knew Mbessa can do things like that. We've seen it before, but as you mentioned, without the ability for Weaver to really build Serpent's Fang and any good members, Mbessa can get in, survive for long enough with the shielding that even just 2 Ocean Drake is enough to slowly sustain. Now, they can't really do this that fast. Now that Ezreal's healed, they'll start to, but it means that they're not in position to start a Drake immediately, right? At the end of the day, Weaver will be able to contest this soul point, and if they can deny the soul, if they can prevent Ocean Soul from going down, then there's somehow still hope.
Yeah, now the unfortunate part is that thanks to the empowered Baron recall, they're really only going to be a couple seconds ahead of Illini. Illini actually has the Ahri already in position. They have blue trinkets and some good in this banana bush to be able to help with the protection. Gloomgrove here a little bit early. He's able to stay out of the sweeper range. So Illini not entirely sure where they are. Full member up from both sides. So we'll have to see how this fight does decide to go. Looks like this dragon is getting pretty low. However, Gloomgrove is sussed out. He does jump into the pit. He loses the smite fight, so that is the Ocean Soul over. If we thought the Mbessa was healing an insane amount before, it is going to be absolutely ridiculous now. And importantly, Weaver State does not have any anti-heal. As we see Zilla going in, he had a hook onto a Jarvan. However, it's just not going to do enough. There's only 3 members of Weaver State Esports left. The Lux, the Kaisa, and the Poppy. Poppy gets a charm on them. However, they're trying to escape here. The Luxol off cooldown again, importantly, is able to do a lot of damage. However, the Jarvan has a lot of damage as well as their Guardian Angel cooldown back. Itsufushi will go down. Eros and the Poppy also following an unfortunate series of events here for Weaver State into this fight.
Wow, what a bloody fight. I respect the attempt from Gloomgrove, believing that maybe they could win the smite fight on the last point of HP they had, but it doesn't work out, and it means that after what was surprisingly a back and forth game for a moment or two, it looks like Weaver will fall, and Illini Esports Blue will take game 1 of their first series in playoffs. Folks, stay tuned because we'll be jumping into a game 2 very shortly here. All right, everyone. Welcome to Game 2 of our NECC Best of 3, the first series in playoffs where Weber State University Purple is up against Illini Esports Blue. And if you caught the first game, it was a little bit of a disaster for Weber that they almost pulled back. It did result in a loss, though.
Yeah, Illini picked a very aggressive go-forward comp, and they definitely showed the ability to take control of the game and not let Weber really pull back. Weber had a couple fights where they were able to bring some gold advantage back. However, for the majority of the game, they were just behind. So we'll have to see what Illini Esports decides to play around if they want to try and take more of these aggressive picks again and try and go in and just really take that tempo in the early game. However, as a reminder, this is a fearless draft, so they will not have access to any of the champions that were played in Game 1. So we'll have to see if they have some flexibility to maintain the same strategy or if they're going to swap strategies and if they want to try something different.
Yeah, we can at least see that they've changed up something a bit, right? They're on the blue side for this draft, so it's something. It's not necessarily the biggest mix-up, but it's a mix-up all the same. So far, the band's about the same as the previous game. Galileo coming out from Weber a little earlier, I believe so it's something.
Yeah, Weber State trying to focus on some mid lane bans here. Obviously, the Syndra, very oppressive in lane. We talked about it in the first game. Galileo also a great pick he's a great counter pick option. He also provides a lot of global utility, so that eliminating that on Weber State's or from Illini Esports potential definitely allows for less tempo picks from them, as I imagine a Galileo would be pretty high priority.
Yeah, it's just, as you said, it's got so much utility. The global, the lane, survivability, good farming if you build the Kanik Rookern, I believe is the name of the magic resist item that kills. No, wait, that's the...
Hollowed Radiance.
Hollowed Radiance. I can never remember the name of that item. What a phenomenal item. You can see the first adaptation of the bands coming out so far, other than side selection. Volibear is a brand new band, so we'll see if Illini has anything they want to match on their band that could be different. I could still see a similar band as last game, which I actually don't remember what it was. Do you remember what their last band was?
No.
Well, okay, either way.
It's just either way a Mel. Mel, it's kind of been in an interesting spot with all the adjustments. I feel like a lot of teams haven't really known where to play a Mel at. But she is very strong in either the bottom lane or the middle lane. She can be used in either position. She still has a lot of wave clear, a lot of poke, and then that execute is really phenomenal in clutch situations. She's able to take out key members of the opposing team. As we see Weber State looking to lock in a Xin Zhao. I do like the Xin Zhao here. He's got a lot of flexibility. He's got a lot of options. Drew Peacock, kind of the decision maker, and as we mentioned, the shot caller and the captain of the team. Xin Zhao definitely gives the ability for them to be able to just go in and really make those decisions.
Yeah, I like Xin Zhao. I think he's just always generically good. Now, of course, we could get the canon matchup and have the enemy team lock in like LeBlanc Zahed, and we could be in trouble, but we'll see what they are going to go for. And, an Ashe picked up early. Okay, I was going to say, I can imagine what's coming with that, but instead, Illini's just going to lock it in themselves immediately. Ashe Seraphine, a phenomenal bot lane duo. If you were all at home watching First Stand over the last couple weeks, you know that this duo is menacing.
Yeah, Ashe Seraphine just has a lot of safety, a lot of poke and crowd control between the slows and the roots and all of the above. And especially those impactful teamfight ults from the Enchanted Crystal Arrow. Weber State, they're going full aggressive. They lock in a Pike into the Seraphine.
Wow. Okay, well, Pike's interesting. It could match with a bunch of different things. And okay, and that's what it's matching with. Wow, I don't know the last time I remember seeing it. Like, Pike shows up occasionally in pro play, right? It's rare, but occasional. With Draven, though, that is an all-or-nothing bot lane. You have to get a lead or else you are going to bleed out and die.
Yeah, Draven's definitely a very bold choice. I think the last time I saw it was like Doggo at Worlds or something. Like, and it takes an insane play style. It takes a lot of confidence and a lot of boldness. And having gone down in game one, especially in all of the lanes early, I like the gumption here from Weber State. It's a lot of risk. If they go behind, they will definitely be behind, and the late game scaling is really rough on Draven Pike. But they have potential to make plays. As we see Illini, they lock in a Trundle here. Trundle, a solid jungler. He just kind of goes even into a lot of lanes, and he has the ability to power farm as well as neutralize different characters on the enemy team. So we see Illini a similar theme to the first game. They've got a lot of crowd control and a lot of ability to kind of control these fights and where they want to be.
Yeah, it's a very scary team composition, a Freljord comp, if you will, because I feel like with the amount of slows that Seraphine has with her E, she might as well be honorary Freljordian. But man, I mean, think about the gank potential there, right? Walking into Ash Seraphine slowing you, followed by Trundle Pillar to prevent you from going anywhere. I mean, Pyke can escape that, but Xin Zhao Draven, I'm not so sure about.
Yeah, Xin does have an ultimate. However, sometimes you don't want to blow the ultimate on those abilities. We see a Hue banned here from Illini, so this is taking away some of those long range options, followed by a Victor ban. It's taking away safe mid laners here from Weber State. Weber State also opting to ban a Talia. I think this is a good option due to the global that they have on Ashe and their I guess their liking for tempo. So taking away that option is a great I guess pick from Weber State as a ban, as we'll wait to see what they will lock in as the last ban here.
A Fiora ban. Okay, well, we at Weber have been seeing a lot more Fiora bans, but usually targeted against our varsity team. Our varsity top laner Batal loves their Fiora, so clearly someone in Illini rather, clearly likes their Fiora. We'll see now what the next pick from Illini will end up being. A couple different options open. Obviously, having both solo lanes as an option for a final pick is really strong. You just get to decide who'd rather pick something into this current matchup and go for it. Is Aurora will be the first champion blinded. I would almost be confident this is mid. The champion does nothing top lane anymore.
Yeah, it's kind of rough into the top lane, but it can be a casual flex. We'll just have to see what Weber State does decide to lock in. Obviously, if it's a more difficult bruiser or something, Aurora can deal with it, and she just kind of goes neutral. But a great pick, honestly. Lots of team fight potential, lots of pick potential, especially into a Pyke that's going to be very squishy, as well as a Draven. And if the Aurora gets ahead, it will be a disaster. We see an Ornn here for Weber State.
Okay, I like Ornn. I think, as you mentioned earlier, the scaling for Draven Pyke is questionable. But with an Ornn, you can at least smooth that out a little bit. Draven scales really well with AD, so just getting a bunch of free AD on a strong item is honestly really great. Now Weber needs to pick their mid laner. They know what they're into, almost guaranteed. So they just need to find something. I think that, I'm not sure what mid laner they'd like. I know Orianna Xin Zhao is fun if you can do the combos, but ooh, they're going to go for Lissandra instead. Okay, I like Lissandra specifically for the ease of execution. Weber's game plan is very clearly get Draven a kill, or 2, or 3, or all of them.
Yeah, honestly, the Lissandra providing a lot of lockdown will secure the Pyke execute. It can secure the Draven getting a kill. As Xin Zhao has the ability to jump and get a knockup. They have the Ornn ultimate for the team fight. They have a lot of options as, wow, a Yorick pick. That seems like a nightmare for an Ornn to play into. It's such a big character model. I imagine Yorick just always lands the ability to get his minions to jump onto him. That seems rough.
So there's one cope about this, and it's the fact that technically the Dark Procession is terrain for Ornn to collide with. That is genuinely just really looking at the silver lining within the absolute pitch black darkness. It's a rough matchup. If you can make it through the game, again, clearly the Ornn is not here to play for the Ornn. Neither is the Xin Zhao, neither is the Lissandra. Weber has ease of execution 101. Click Ornn ultimate, click Lissandra ultimate, click Pyke buttons, and just hope you can assassinate someone with Draven. I think they can do that. My fear is that they picked Ornn into Trundle. So let alone, the top lane matchup being bad. Late game, this Trundle will be more unkillable than Ornn, which will be a level 20 top laner if we get that far. So I like the Ornn. It eases out their scaling at least a little bit, but I don't know about this. We have a little bit of delay getting into game as well, I should mention. So bear with us for just a minute or two.
Yeah, just a little bit of the spectator delay as per usual. Man, the other thing is I feel like the Yorick, he's a really good side laner into both the Ornn or the Lissandra. They don't have a lot of damage, or at least consistent damage, to be able to kill the Maiden. Usually you want someone that has a lot more DPS or minion-oriented damage, but the Lissandra and Ornn do not really have that. So the Maiden's really going to be able to keep a lot of pressure. It's going to keep Weber State team members in the side lanes a lot more than I think they want to. As well as importantly, Illini has a lot of utility on their champions. So if they need to stall for a 4v5 on a dragon or on a baron or on another objective, they have the ability to. They have the ability to peel back. And Weber State, even though they do have a lot of engage, it's going to have to be placed very precisely. And they're going to have to position well enough to be able to dodge things like the Seraphine Encore and the Ashe Enchanted Crystal arrow. So it's going to be definitely a skill matchup around these objectives. We'll have to see how Weber State can avoid the Yorick from absolutely demolishing their lanes. I'd like to see Weber State maybe playing a little bit for grubs just to avoid that pressure, but we'll have to see how it goes as we're going to launch into game here.
All right, we're loading in. We can see some summoner spells now. Try to find if anyone's taking anything cheeky. I'm not seeing it. Looks fairly standard. I mean, cleanse, ignite on Draven Pike. As much as I'd like to pretend that's like cool and flashy, that's standard for those two, especially in this lane matchup.
Yeah, is Hail Blades the standard that Pike usually takes? Is that?
Yes, actually. That's a bit of a new thing people have been doing recently, but the few times we've seen Pike show up in professional play, I believe we saw it at the LEC finals from Busio. It is very common for Pike to take Hail Blades. You're trying to assassinate someone early. You're not as worried about late game. You can see even Trundle walking really far down, trying to make sure that, hey, we really want to prevent this early play from happening. There's a little bit of trading here in the mid lane. Itzafuji is really weak for most of the early game, but the mid game, Lissandra is a menace. We talked about that, you mentioned neither top or jungler for Weber really wants to lane into the Yorick, but at least in the side lane, Lissandra's wave clear is unbelievable, especially after the recent patch that made her Q even a second lower cooldown if it wasn't already low enough.
Yeah, her Q when it gets leveled, it feels like a machine gun sometimes. We see it. I like these ward placements here from both teams. The Trundle looking like they're trying to go in for this early invade here again, but he does know where the wards are from Weber State, so he's just going to run straight to this red buff, avoiding the chickens because they did see Weber State drop a ward there. Now, Weber State being a little unawares here, I believe the Trundle does win against Xin Zhao early. One of Xin Zhao's main weaknesses is that his first clear is obnoxiously slow. He really takes having all three abilities up to be able to get cooldowns down, as we see a level 2 advantage here for Weber State. Arrows opting to run in straight for this Ashe, doing quite a bit of damage. It looks like they did trade quite a few summoner spells here, as we have the barrier and the heal, both used by Illini Esports. However, this Trundle is behind them and they're not aware. This is a crazy level 2 gank. Arrows does get the kill, so he is able to secure quite a bit of gold here, but the Trundle running straight for him. Ashe does hit level 2, so she has quite a bit of health. She also flashes out. The final twirling axe not able to secure the kill. The Pike trying to run back in, but he misses the hook. So this turns around as a double kill here for the Illini Esports bot lane. However, the one kill and the Draven passive still enough to keep him in a gold advantage. So good job from Weber State. Drew Peacock, though, is bitten off too much to chew as the Yorick is able to secure the kill. That large hitbox, as we said, not working in his advantage.
Well, Weaver got a kill on Draven at least, and it was first blood, so it's a lot of gold. But, I mean, beautiful play from 2608 here. I think Trundle being behind them absolutely saved the game for Illini, because genuinely without it, Ashe cannot farm the wave, has to base and wait for the support to be back, and Draven gets way more experience in farm. So the fact that Draven is still up in gold despite being 10 CS down on the Ashe and a level is a pretty big deal. You can see that Weaver's game plan obviously is that, and the more they can get for it, the better. But clearly, Illini wanting to deny it aggressively.
Yeah, now importantly, the wave was also in a really awkward position there for Weber State, so there is a XP advantage here for their opposing bot laners, which is rather unfortunate. The other thing with this Trundle invade means that his camp timers are going to be really awkward here on the next respawn. So even if he does get an advantage, it allows the Xin Zhao to be able to catch back up quite a bit. However, you see Xin Zhao is actually ahead because he did take the opposite play into the opposing enemy jungler as he ganks the mid lane. Fantastic route here from Itzafushi allows the Xin Zhao to jump in, and they are able to secure the kill here. Good advantage from Weber State to not be afraid to play the opposite sides of the map. They saw some of the tricks that Illini Esports likes to play in this early game, and they adapted really well to them.
Yeah, happy to see that end up going a little bit in Weaver's favor, which means the gold is now functionally even. 100 gold in the favor of Illini, but again, that swings really fast, especially when you have a Draven. As Zilla barely misses a hook there. Obviously, it's max range, not much you can do about that, but I was surprised it was even close.
Surprised indeed. I will have to see if they can get some more plays. It looks like Zilla, as we speak of it, he runs forward. The root does land, however, but the axes knock the Ashe out of the Pike stun. However, the Ashe is still just going to go down. The Draven with the movement speed in the chase, juggling those axes perfectly, leads to another kill and more advantage here for Weber State. This is exactly what they need to see. Functionally, the Draven, when they start to enter those 2 and 3 item phases, wants to be up an entire item on the enemy laner by the time we get to those crucial fights. So this is a good trajectory for him, but we'll need to continue to see this if they're going to succeed in this game. We see Pyke roaming here for the mid lane. He's trying to see if he can get a play on the Aurora. The Aurora does still have her flashes, however, so not a lot of great options, just throwing the hook out casually. However, a Trundle is here in the mid lane, able to offer some protection. As the Aurora does hit level 6, gets a good trade here on the Lissandra, but Lissandra just trades back at level 6, and they recognize they do not want to go for that play, especially if the Pyke was close and they didn't know where Xin was.
Yeah, Aurora made the aggressive play as the wave was walking into Tsufushi and believed that, oh, they won't hit 6. And then they hit 6, so suddenly the play is immediately called off, and now we've honestly in a pretty good position in the ultimate state of mid lane. Anti-healing already finished for Drew Peacock, which means they can kind of play the game. But meanwhile, on the bottom side, a bit of a game from Gloomgrove that seems to be going fairly well. Looks like they got the flash out of JKL, the Seraphine already. But now Gloomgrove being slowed to oblivion, forced to flash themselves to avoid the pillar from Trundle. I don't know if Pyke should hook that. It looks like they're going to at least consider it, but Zilla needs to be careful. Should still have the E so they can escape without too much fear. But this is what can happen if the play doesn't immediately go in their favor. The slow on the return fight is too much to deal with for Weaver.
Yeah, now importantly, Eros does have a BF sword, so this is a pretty big advantage for him here. We see even the Lissandra wandering down just in case the action decided to continue to escalate, which I think is a good call considering the tempo that Illini likes to play with. But she does lose a few minions and a little bit of XP here in this mid lane. Almost, well, basically 3/4 of a level down is a little bit rough here. Drew Peacock is trading pretty evenly here into the Yorick. He's down 10 CS, which honestly, with the amount of pressure the Yorick has on him, we'll take it. We'll take it. The Ornn is here to scale into the late game to allow these Weber State champions to play and take advantages. So we'll take whatever we can get. The most important thing on him is the XP so that he can eventually start giving those master-crafted items over.
Yep, so just staying in lane and surviving, that's all we ask for. It looks like Weaver going for an aggressive player. They can chain CC Trundle really easily, even with the pillar. I think it'll actually be going over to the Draven as well. And Weaver's game plan continues. 3 kills so far out of their total of 4 on Eros. I'm starting to see some hope for this game, especially with a 1.2 thousand gold lead on their AD carry already.
Yeah, this is definitely one of those games that I think could have been, if Eros and Zilla lost a lead in the early game, we'd probably already be calling GG's, but they've luckily been playing really well together and especially matching around the jungle, so they've had a lot of good plays and opportunity here. It looks like even opting for a dive. Zilla flashes for the double stun, however he took tower aggro, but it's an execute somehow. They didn't touch him at all, but Itsubushi caught out here by the Trundle, means that the play does go a little bit sour. Eros unfortunately not able to land too many of those whirling blades here onto the opposing team. Really rather unfortunate here, but you can see, oh, stop. Oh, he gets the kill on the Seraphine. That's a great gold turnover here. As we see the Trundle opting to try and start the dragon. They don't know where the Xin, or I guess they saw the Xin Zhao earlier due to an Aurora roam into the top lane. However, Gloomgrove does appear to spot it out. He is level 6. He's been farming so much. He doesn't see the dragon on his W, so he's going to be able to walk into it. Trundle does have the option here, though, to take a camp and to be able to hit level 6. They do have the Scuttle Crab taken, so not a lot of options there, unfortunately, for Weber State to maybe respond and try and pick that dragon back up. But they've had some good tempo here.
I'm still in disbelief that Eros found the angle to hit the ultimate. Very impressive, honestly. I'm blown away. Weaver off to a pretty good gold lead. Overall, it's not that much of a gold lead, of course, right? Because of top lane, the 1,000 gold in Yorick's favor. Yeah, sure. However, if you take out the fact that Ornn will still be useful, even being about 1,000 gold behind, you have to remember that Draven just finished a Bloodthirster. So how do you kill him anymore? Like, you have to chain CC him through his entire health bar. If he has a chance to auto you with an axe, he will heal like 1/5 of his HP, and then do it again in a second.
Yeah, I love these Bloodthirster starts. It's maybe not as explosive or not as much damage as some of the other options. However, the survivability and the utility, it really just gives a Draven, especially when he's facing into an Aurora who can just get so much free poke on these team fights and the long range of the Seraphine. I think it's just a really solid pickup. I love to see Weber play for these bot sides, as they do actually have an Aurora TP coming in, protecting from a dive that Gloomgrove was looking for. Now, this is a lot of resources spent, but we see the Trundle responding on the opposite side of the map with taking the grubs. Now, that, as we mentioned in the pregame, this can be a crucial objective for them, as it does mean that the Yorick will have even more pushing power, especially with that Trinity Force that he'll have completed. But Weber State kind of spending a lot of time here. I'd love to see them move towards this dragon, taking the Scuttle Crab and some of those advantages, but they're just kind of twiddling their thumbs a little bit.
I'm This game is just chaos. I think that's really the only way to describe it. It is just chaos. Drew Peacock choosing to go for the all-in has a lot of damage on one with the double brittle proc, but with the healing on Hana, even with the anti-healing in place on Drew Peacock, it just seems like they might perish here, even with a little bit more damage from the Maiden. No, it won't come out, and a great play from Weaver. Yes, they will end up getting the Drake in the end, it looks like, and looks maybe as well like Aurora had to use the ultimate to escape as well.
Yeah, they're even gathering for a dive here on the top lane. The Ornn back does get interrupted, and it appears that the Trundle Pillar was used as he took a tower shot there, and ultimately the Yorick getting a kill. The Yorick up 1,400 gold. This is the last thing Weaver State wants to see. They're going to have a lot of pressure on these side lanes and a lot of opportunity to earn gold here. As we see another fight here in the bottom lane, both supports traded. However, as we mentioned, Eros has a finished item, so he should be able to do a lot of damage to the Ashe. The Ashe has an advantage of having boots plus the completed axe, so she has some movement speed and attack speed, but just not enough. Eros almost took another tower shot there. That would have been tragic to throw that shutdown back over to, I guess he doesn't have a shutdown yet because the game's pretty even. Would have been tragic to throw that gold back over to the Ashe and lose some of his stacks. But a great play from Weaver. Again, just taking control of this bottom side, really trying to play through the Draven. They understand the assignment of ignoring the Ornn, trying to minimize what the Yorick can do. However, the Yorick does have a lot going for him with those gold advantages.
And Gloomgrove getting a very cheeky invade, but overall, the gold is even in the game. In fact, the best way to describe the gold lead right now is basically the jungler's gold difference, 4, because that might as well be it. You can see the gold locked close. However, with Yorick getting a reset here, I think right now Weaver actually might need to be more careful. I think with how tanky and how strong the Yorick is right now, it feels a little bit better than the Draven, which is crazy to say. I know, I'm aware, but somehow I believe it is. Let's see if Weaver can choose to pull the trigger on this very scary blue buff fight. I mean, they can just do right that. They can hook the blue buff and choose to smite it away with Gloomgrove, who actually maybe doesn't have smite, it looks like. So yeah, they need to be really careful about it. They're still going to force them out eventually, and it works out in their favor. But the longer a play like this happens without a major objective to go for, Han in the top lane here can keep pushing and trying to get a lot of stuff in their advantage.
Yeah, now this is kind of the disadvantage here for going with Drew Peacock going for a Bramble Vest start, is he's not going to go and complete that Thornmail first. It's just not the strongest item. So it kind of leaves him with components in his inventory, and now Hana's able to finish that Triforce up, and he's just up a full item that has a unique passive as completed items do and a lot of damage. So the Drew Peacock definitely needs to play it very careful in this side lane, and they've just Weber State's going to lose a lot of pressure here, especially with the Dragon not spawning for another 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Now the Trundle looking for a play here on this top side to maybe take back this objective that they were missing earlier. However, Gloomgrove does go in for the fight. Trundle is able to secure it, I believe. And now Drew Peacock opting to ult here. However, the Yorick has shown up. He's doing so much damage, you can see, with the Trinity Force to the Xin Zhao. Aurora also arriving to the fight. The Ghouls leaping to Gloomgrove. He tries to jump back in to help. The Aurora ult actually kind of doesn't do a whole lot, but Itsufushi is going to be nuked as well. Looks like they were able to take out that Trundle, but it is just a Drew Peacock versus a Yorick and an Aurora, and it does not go in favor for Weber State. And now they've got a 3 grub Yorick able to hit a tier 2 just for fun.
And Raven dies on the bot side in the isolated 2v2. Once both of these bot laners have ult, the Ashe and Seraphine are really scary. We got to see the entirety of what Illinois' composition does, like, perfectly, right? Illini just had Yorick get a triple kill in a long extended fight where he can heal with Trinity Force, and got to have their bot laners solo kill a Draven. That's pretty disastrous, if I had to say so myself. What looked like a really strong start for Weber is once again becoming a disaster for them.
Yeah, this is going to be pretty rough. I'd love to see Illini then swap this Yorick down onto the bottom side where the towers are, and especially with the Dragon spawning here in a minute, they're going to have so much pressure. Weber State will then be forced to make plays and to try and regroup here. I'd love to see them group up and see if they could get a pick, but Illini dropping all 5 members here onto the bottom side, I feel is very smart. Then they're not going to allow Weber State to really make these picks to try and get more gold onto the Draven or to try and pull an advantage for the Dragon fight. I think this is a very heads-up play. They're sending the Aurora, it looks like, to the top lane. She has a TP. As we see, Itsufushi does catch a Seraphine out. However, there are 3 members of the opposing team here. They are able to ultimate to save some time. Zilla missing the hook. Either way, I believe they were dead in the water. Now we've got 3 members trying to run down onto this Yorick. However, the Yorick is 1v1ing this Draven as he does absolutely insane damage. I believe that was a Hull Breaker proc as well onto that Q. This Yorick is going to be a serious problem here for Weber State.
Wow, that's unfortunate to see. I mean, we called it earlier, though, right? The Yorick is just going to be more useful than the Draven for most of the game until Draven finishes like 75% crit. Without reliably critting Yorick, I don't see how Draven wins it, especially with the Hull Breaker, as you mentioned, completed. It's a little rough. The 6-0 Yorick with almost the full gold value shutdown now. I imagine once they get this plate, it should update very quickly here into a 700 gold shutdown. And Weber is losing the game to exactly one champion. The death man in the top side. Currently bot side.
Yeah, this is a very rough situation for Weber State Esports. They do opt to throw the Draven here into the mid lane. I'm curious to see where this Yorick goes. I'm almost surprised that he didn't decide to keep pushing for that tier 2, knowing where most of the members of Weber State Esports are. However, he's able to back and buy another pickaxe along with some completed steel caps. Aurora solo killing the Ornn in the top lane. Not really surprised by that. She has a completed item. I guess he has the protocol harness, but really not a lot for the Ornn to play for. Weber State in some rough waters. They really need to scale. They need to get some experience here on the Ornn. But it's just going to be a rough game here as we see Itsufushi. The amount of damage that he's going to take from these ghouls as they jump in. The singular E basically taking away a third of his health as the Qs just do not eliminate the ghouls very quickly. Weber State opting to cross map onto this Herald. But Illini might be able to get here quick enough. It depends on how they decide to move here. The Herald is going down rather quickly, so this should be just Weber State's objective, which it looks like it is.
Yeah, without any vision on the Herald, it was really hard to know exactly what health is at, how long they've been on it. So ultimately, Weber finds a small victory that can potentially secure them a major pressure point in the mid lane. Let's see if they choose to go for it here. Meanwhile, again, on the bottom side, we've got a bit of a problem here. The Yorick doing so much work, pushing Lysandra back to base, and level 13 to... I mean, it's a level above at least anyone in the game, maybe multiple over certain members. You can see that actually a lot of people walking down for Weber to try and threaten the Yorick, but Yorick immediately respects it due to the pings from their team. They'll back out to safety, and now back to Pike and Draven gameplay in the mid lane. Ultimately, they have to be the ones to find a hero play.
Yeah, and you can see the Seraphine just really sticking to this Ashe as a smart play. She recognizes that the Ashe is very vulnerable into a Pike, and they do not want to give any more gold over the Draven. The Draven has been catching a lot of axes in the last few minutes. So they have quite the large amount of stacks on their passive, and the next kill could be very huge as you see Itsufushi just going down to the Yorick. Even the Trundle coming in for the pillar. Trundle did invest the flash as we see a Pike getting a kill onto the Seraphine in the mid lane. They're continuing to go for the Ashe. The Draven does secure the kill, so the Draven does pick up quite a lot of gold there, and they just trade the Pike's life. I believe that is worth it. The Ornn trying to TP for the turret, but really, what's an Ornn going to do here? He's not going to stop a whole lot. He's really just kind of showing pressure, and then the Aurora's just going to push in anyways. They are trying to catch a Draven out as we see the Aurora TP behind him. However, Draven should be able to walk back to this tower, but there's a lot of pressure here in the jungle as they jump onto Gloomgrove. There were several ultimates invested. Drew Peacock also trying to use the Owenhorn to get out, but he just does not have the utility or the damage. A great play from Illini to try and take over this jungle and really not allow Gloomgrove to play the game.
The amount of healing is crazy, and the amount of damage there. Oh no, we talked about Pike's inability to scale, and some of that is his inability to gain health. Folks, that is a very, very dead Draven, and soon to be a dead Pike if I had to guess. No, it looks like Zilla will barely escape. The squishiness of Weber is becoming their problem. They can't chunk through the Trundle fast enough. Their only tanky member gets immediately ulted and then becomes as squishy as the Draven, right? When you give that many resistances to a Trundle for free when you're Ornn, you just can't play the game.
Yeah, I'd love to see some plated steel caps, I think, from this Draven, as there's a lot of AD and a lot of auto-attacking here from Illini Esports, as he does need to complete his boots. Itsufushi going in on a 3v4. Weber State, I think, overplaying for desperation here. I think potentially trying to stop some backs, but now Illini recognizing, well, if they're not going to interrupt it, well, it looks like they're actually backing now. They maybe could have pushed forward for this inhibitor turret, but opting to play safe, which I think is a smart call. They don't want to give any shutdowns over, as they recognize there are 3 shutdowns on their teammates, and that would be, once like last game, the option for Weber State to be able to get back into the game.
Yorick's been trying to reset for minutes now. You can see immediately finished a Shojin and picked up a bunch of other useful components. So yeah, I think I understand why they wanted to reset. They were just saying, hey, even if it's not the best timer for us, it's items, and we really need items coming up on a Drake in 46 seconds. If we stay for too long, lose too much health, and lose our pressure on the Drake, it could be disastrous.
Yeah, and without really any major towers besides inhibitors for the Yorick to take on the side lanes, it really gives him the option to play with his team. He does have a TP up for this Drake. Drew Peacock does not. I'd love to see Itsufuji being swapped over to this top lane. Weber State desperately needs this Drake, or they need to play for something. It should be noted that basically the entirety of the gold lead for Illini Esports is on the Yorick. The Yorick's not in the fight. They have a lot of option to play, but he just understands the assignment of running down Drew Peacock. You can see the amount of damage coming through and the lack of options here for him to be able to survive against the Yorick. But 4 members of Weber State Esports are here. Itsufuji gonna solo die in the bot lane as the Yorick just TPs out in a bush. A great play to make sure that the shutdown does not go over to any members of Weber State Esports. Illini Esports not letting up the pressure, and now they've got a dragon to be able to take.
Well, looks like they're gonna say maybe that they're fine with the dragon being taken only by their jungler. Maybe rotate top here to prevent the tower from going down and look at a Baron potentially. I think they've got the ability to. It's just a little risky. Itsufuji doesn't have their flash up. Is still dead for 13 seconds, but no, it looks like Weber is going to make a good play here, dodge the arrow, which is a huge deal, and let the Herald be their pressure point. It's only the second Drake of the game for Illini, and Gloomgrove trying to get the tower and reset Herald. I don't know if that's going to work. I think the moment that this, yeah, you can see, unfortunately, Hana caught on very quickly to the the escape condition, rather, of Gloomgrove. Will kill the Herald before worrying about it, and just a simple kill for them. Now with jungler down, I'm pretty concerned about the pings coming out on Baron for Illini. Weber needs to find a window to do something. Maybe a Draven ultimate can at least chunk out some of the members of the enemy team, but with the amount of healing and sustain they have, I don't think it's enough.
Yeah, you can see the great understanding Illini Esports had of how thinly they could really stretch themselves. They didn't need all the members to be on the dragon, so they just send a Trundle for it. As we see, the Hana does land a hook on the Yorick, but the Yorick is actually really tanky. He has a lot of HP in these items, so they're not able to get enough damage down. Eros now being sent on by the Aurora as well as the Trundle. He does do a lot of damage. They are able to pick up a singular kill on the Trundle. The next kill on the Aurora would have been massive. Unfortunately, not able to land it. But like I said, Illini, just knowing that they have the pressure, they know that Weber State doesn't understand quite where they're stretched out to. The Trundle solos the dragon while they go up, and they're able to secure some kills on the top side. They've potentially had some pressure to set up a Baron, but I think a great look from Weber to put some pressure there, and now they've been able to secure with the top and the bottom tower quite a bit of gold back. The gold lead's not as big as it was looking. Gloomgrove playing pretty aggressive here in this mid lane, looking at a great flash to try and knock up the Ashe. However, Itsufuji with not enough damage to secure it. Quite a fantastic stopwatch there. Zilla jumps in to try and get the execute, but it misses wildly to the right. A throne play here for Weber State gives 1,000 of that gold back into the hands of Illini Esports.
They got so many summoners last fight and that fight. They had hope, but it's immediately dashed as the healing from Ashe even is surprisingly high. If I had to guess, some healing in the rune page and the help of their support means way too much for Weber to be able to deal with. And the optimism from my end is getting scary. Obviously, Eros can still somehow win fights, which is crazy. Like, the moment Eros started hitting Hana, they had the flash out immediately around the original Baron play. It was close. But now, Weber has no idea that a Baron is being two-manned, which is really easy for the two people doing it to do. It'll be slow, yes, but at a certain point, they will just get it for free.
Yeah, Trundle has enough sustain and damage to be able to do it, but the Serving and the Ashe will show up just to kind of put the nail in the coffin here. Weber State kind of sussing it out, but they don't have a jungler close, so this should just be a free Baron. Which is going to be great news for this Yorick here in the bottom side. He'll have a lot of pressure on this inhibitor. Weber State opting to try and stay if they can get a pick here or two. I would have loved to see him just rotate down to this Yorick to try and get that shutdown. However, it is just a solo Drew Peacock trying to do his best. He actually does get quite a bit of damage here. And now the Xin Zhao is running in as well. However, this Yorick still has a threatening amount of sustain, but Drew Peacock just gets a solo kill. The Yorick massively overplaying. But once again, that's not the person you want the gold to go on to. As much as we love Drew Peacock and we love Ornn, it's not one of the carries. It's not someone that's going to be able to pull a lot of weight in these team fights. Itsufuji with a fantastic flash over the Encore. Eros does manage to secure another kill. The Trundle is running straight for him, though, and the Draven does get annihilated. Gloomgrove also showing up. Drew Peacock for their efforts, even without the Ornhorn, but they may be able to get a kill onto this Ashe. It is so close. The Protoplasm Arm is doing so much work here to try and keep him alive. But ultimately, Weber State trades 4 for 2 on this fight. Just kidding, 5 for 2. They lost a lot there.
I understand the idea from Weber. You say, hey, their strongest member is dead, we can do something. But unfortunately, their second strongest members are very much alive, have everything they need to win that fight. And the Draven is damaged, but when he's trying to flash forward to get an auto on a champion that isn't even in range and is still mostly full health, it's optimistic at best. So I'm nervous for them. I like the ideas, and at least we now know that apparently Ornn with Jack Show kills a Yorick, which is crazy, and maybe Zill is trying to show that a member of Weber can find another random kill as well. It would be beneficial for them, but it's a little bit difficult here. Arrow's trying to run forward, but with a flash on Aurora and ultimate coming up in a couple seconds, it's, once again, optimistic is the word I will choose to use.
Optimistic indeed. If we take a quick recap of the last few minutes, the gold lead now is 8,000 for Illini Esports. They have a dragon coming up here in 30 seconds. However, it is just for Soul Point. So it is something that Weber could concede, but they don't have a lot of pressure in other parts of the map to be able to try and regain some gold back as we've seen them do in previous games. They're also doing a great job of taking Weber State Esports jungle, so they don't have those extra resources to be able to get. So it might be a little bit rough here. I like this third pickup for the Trundle. He decides to go for a Vandal Pipes. She really doesn't have that many options to slow, but being able to maintain that Vandal Pipes just for a little bit as Gloomgrove does actually try and go in on a pick onto the Trundle. However, that's so much damage onto the Weber State backline from the Aurora. The Draven and the Pike are eliminated. Drew Peacock to follow. It is only a Lysandra alive, and it looks like she may be stopped on her back. Nope, she's able to get the back thanks to the newest patch in mid lanes and powered recall. But Illini Esports here looking to end the game. Lysandra doesn't really have enough wave clear to be able to stop him. She also just does not have a ton of damage here with the Zonias and only a Malignance. She does opt to go in to try and burst a few members down, but you can see that it is not going to be successful. The Seraphine heals putting a stop to that as Illini Esports will finish the Nexus here. This will be a victory for them overall in 2 games over Weber State Esports.
Yeah, pretty dominant set of victories for them as well. Obviously, of course, we are not out of the NECC playoffs. We have double elimination, which means we will be playing again tomorrow. We won't know the time immediately until later in that day. So keep an eye out. It should be around the same time, either 8 p.m., 7 p.m., maybe 9 p.m. But thanks for sticking with us. And Weber, we're still rooting for you. Don't count yourselves out, and we'll see you all tomorrow.